Welcome to the Zoom edition of On the DL. My name is Dakota.
And I'm Alana Hawley.
Awesome. We're just at home enjoying lockdown, so we thought we didn't want that to stop getting out an episode, so here we are on Zoom.
And hopefully we can give you some information today to help you come out of lockdown a little bit better.
Yes. Hopefully the very short lockdown.
Very short. This better lift.
Hopefully. So we've got a few topics to cover today. We did a few question boxes over the last week and a half, and we got some really good questions on some diets that people have been hearing about, and we kind of want to cover them and just fill people in on the good and bad stuff about them.
And remember, guys, we really are trying to take the practical approach here. So we're not going to overload you with science and all that sort of jazz. We want to give you the practical pros and cons of these things, what really works and what really doesn't. Some of this is opinion-based. Some of this is what we've seen works and what we've seen doesn't work. So, you're more than welcome to share your opinions and have different opinions, but we just want to give you the info that we've been privileged enough to learn over the years and hope that it helps you.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Where are we starting, Jack?
Sweet. All right. Calories in versus calories out. Now, this is I love this one because it's just simplifying such a complex topic.
It really is. So we do understand that to have effective fat loss, there has to be a deficit created. No one in the industry will argue that fact. What you will notice divides the industry, though, is how we go about creating that deficit and the other things that play into it, like macronutrient profiles and micronutrient profiles. And Dakota and I are both big promoters of making sure that our clients understand the value of these macro and micronutrients. Yes. So the simple short answer to this question is that yes, it's a necessity to create a caloric deficit to achieve successful fat loss or to achieve successful weight loss. But there is so much more that plays into it. And I guess one of the things that we see all the time is that often people think that they've been under eating when in fact they've actually been consuming more calories than they realize that they were consuming. So they think that they've been in a calorie deficit and that the calorie deficit's not working, when in reality, they've actually been eating little things. My husband, if you want to jump on his Instagram, they call him X, he's the perfect example of it. I caught him out having extra milk in his coffees and adding things.
I saw that, extra blueberries.
And I got him.
When has a calorie deficit never worked? Like, give me one time.
That's exactly right. So the situation is that we have to understand what creates a calorie deficit and what things limit it. I think I even did it with you, didn't I, Dak? There was a week where you were getting picky at a few different things. And when I got you to actually calculate it all, were you surprised at how much you accidentally overate without really thinking about it?
I wasn't, honestly. I knew what I was doing.
At least she's honest.
I knew what I was doing, but 100%, like you said, like you kind of don't realize that those little things over, a 7-day period do 100% add up, and that just takes you straight out of the deficit.
That's right. So I guess that's our first sort of fact or fiction bit that we're going to talk about in terms of calories in versus calories out. Are you actually in a deficit? So if you're not actually in a deficit, it's not going to work no matter how you go about it. So ignoring things is not going to solve the problem. Tracking, and it doesn't have to be MyFitnessPal. It can be a diet diary. It can be photographs. It can be anything. Tracking is a great way of getting yourself to be more mindful about your food choices and more aware of them, and that will help to put you into that deficit that you've been chasing that hasn't been working.
Yes.
And then,
at the end of the day, it's just trackable data. You're not doing it to make yourself feel bad. You're not doing it to be obsessive. You're doing it because you want consistency. You have a goal and you want to be consistent and you want to lose weight or you want to gain muscle, like whatever you're kind of going for. You want to make sure that you're actually going to get there, and
Absolutely.
tracking it helps.
Absolutely. And I think Dak and I covered something just before we jumped on here with you guys that we think is fairly valid. One of the simplest ways to start making a significant difference is to track your calories and your protein. So don't get too bogged down in everything, the be all and end all of your carbs, your fats, your micronutrients, Start by tracking something simple, get a really good grasp of it. If you manage to effectively track a calorie deficit and adequate protein, you are going to see positive results in your body composition. So for people who are feeling really overwhelmed, and we get it all the time, don't we, Dak?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and it's a lot, it's very stressful. If you've never done it before, you're going to tracking, nothing to tracking calories, your major macros, your micronutrients, your water intake, pretty much everything under the sun. It can be a little overwhelming.
Absolutely. So if we take it back to basics for a minute and just get you to focus on 2 or 3 little elements that you can make a big change with, we can start to push you in that direction. Then things like macronutrient composition of your intake can start to play in. So we can start to see whether or not your body works better on a higher fat or a higher carb diet. We can play that into, okay, so what sport is this person into, or what's their activity level like, and what are they likely to respond best to? Also things like, what do they like? Like, what do you enjoy? Have to play.
I feel like people forget that part. Like, what food do you actually like to eat?
We have this all or nothing approach to nutrition these days, and it's terrifying because we think we either have to give up everything or it's just not worth it. There's no point in doing it, and it's just not that simple. So
it's great if it was, but it's not.
How much easier would life be? So I think, what it comes down to in terms of calories in versus calories out is, yes, it matters, but it's not the only thing that matters. And it's really important that you have a progressive education in understanding what a deficit is, understanding how to manage a deficit, and then understanding where to move to next to improve that outcome. So I think hopefully we've covered that one for you guys.
If you have any more questions about it, let us know and we'll ramble some more. So exactly like you said it, it's a really good starting point, but it's the starting point, and it just gets more and more complex as the better you get at it, as does everything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think the next one,
is the good quality sleep improves fat loss and overall life, I would say.
Absolutely.
You don't know how, I feel like you don't know how much, a good night's sleep really helps until you just don't get it anymore.
It's true. It's like most things. People don't realize how bad their bloating is until they're not bloated. People don't realize how bad their sleep is till they get a good night's sleep. It's so fun.
Yep.
But look, the fact of the matter is poor sleep has several physiological knock-on effects, right? So we're not talking about you just wake up tired, so everything goes to
so much worse than that.
It's so much more than that. So I've spoken to most of my clients about the effect that poor quality sleep has on several hormones in the body. So I'll cover a few of those with you guys now. So when we have poor quality sleep, we get a reduction in leptin, which is our satiety hormone. So ironically, because we've had poor sleep, our body thinks that we need to be fed more so that we can survive the next day, manage it, and get through it. So it decreases our satiety response whilst it increases ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone. So it's making us more hungry and less satiated so that we get more fuel in, which from a survival perspective is understandable. The problem is we don't have that issue anymore. So whereas once upon a time it was difficult to come across food, now we have food right and center at 3 o'clock in the morning that we can run out and grab. So we don't have this survival issue anymore, but our body is still in tune with it. Then to top that off, poor sleep will increase your cortisol response across the day. Now, I want to point out, cortisol is not bad. Cortisol is a necessary response that the body has to stress. But when we're having a chronic stress response, so when the cortisol doesn't drop back down, or when the cortisol doesn't do what it's supposed to do across the day, that's when we have problems. That increase in cortisol, it leads to us wanting foods that create sort of a reward for us, or things that might create a serotonin response or a dopamine response.
Those sugary, salty treats.
Absolutely. So instead of going for the things that we know we should, so the things that will nourish us and the things that will keep us feeling full, we go to exactly that. The sugary sweets, the caffeine, and then the knock-on effect is too much sugar, too much caffeine, we have another poor night's sleep, and then we're in the same situation tomorrow. So there are physiological reasons why our fat loss is affected by our poor sleep. Now, there are 101 different things. Like Dak and I were talking before about recovery, and you were saying that you've noticed this one, haven't you, Gorge?
Yeah, 100%. You know, like it's recovery. It's like you said, you know, obviously sleep is going to affect weight loss, and it's not purely weight loss. It's just the mechanics of how you actually get there. And it's the same as training. Like, you know, the difference between a really good training session and a really fucking shit one. And that's, you know, you wake up from the sleep, you're hungry, you're probably eating something that you shouldn't have, which is stuffed your gut up. You go in, you try and train, the energy's not there, your recovery is not there, and therefore the next day you're going to pull up way more sore, and you're also not going to get, like, with you know, you don't get a good quality sleep, you're obviously not going to recover, you're not going to repair, you're not going to grow. All of that's going to be severely slowed down. So it's like it affects all everything you can imagine. It affects.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got the knock-on effects of growth hormone being affected, protein synthesis being affected. For men in particular, testosterone can drop as well.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about, like we said, we're not talking about, okay, I woke up feeling crabby, I just can't be bothered doing anything today. We're talking about both psychological and physiological aspects of this, you know. So prioritizing sleep is huge. There are some very simple things that if we prioritize would give us payback tenfold. So like we said, if you want fat loss, you need to be in a calorie deficit and have adequate protein. If you want to gain lean mass, you need to be in a surplus and you need to have adequate protein.
Adequate protein.
pretty simple. Then we move on to things like sleep and water. If we have good quality sleep, it improves all of these systems that we've covered. And if we're getting adequate water, all of the metabolic reactions in the human body that require water to go forward, which is pretty much all of them, are going to operate more consistently and at a better rate. So what we want you to take away from this, guys, is the little things that make the big differences, rather than focusing on the little things that make next to no difference. I think, Dak, you would agree that we get asked more often about supplements than we do about food, right? Like, everyone wants the pill that's going to achieve this, rather than the dietary intervention that's going to achieve it. And what we want to get people understanding is that that's just not relevant. No pill, no supplement that you take, no quick fix is going to get you where you want to go and allow you to stay there.
I feel like, especially with this next topic as well, I feel like people almost want the journey to be too complicated or too hard, so that they fail and then they stay where they are. I almost feel like a lot of people do want it to be too hard, so they overcomplicate it and think that they have to go out and buy all of these things, take all of these things, you know, I have to sleep 10 hours a night, I can't do that, I'll just continue on my 7. And it's like, well, that's not what we're saying.
No. It's self-sabotage, isn't it? It's that self-sabotage, because we all have that innately. We just apply it to different circumstances. I have something funny that happens to me a lot in clinic is I'll get people that rock up in clinic that tell me that, let's say, for instance, intermittent fasting worked really well for them. And my answer to them is always, if it worked so well, why are you in my office? So why do you need me if it's working so well for you? If this system is perfect and it's getting you where you need to go, you shouldn't need me. But the fact that you're here means that it doesn't actually work for you. It means that that's it. It means that it was able to give you rapid fat loss in a short period of time that you were unable to maintain for whatever reason. So let's look at it from that perspective. So whilst we're on the topic,